So it's my real privilege to be here this afternoon. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Kieran Turner. I work for the Evangelical Alliance in Scotland as their public policy officer. So Chloe and I will work together reasonably regularly in terms of different issues around Parliament, different topics. As Alan said, it's been interesting to do that job over the last few years for two reasons. One is we have a lot of constitutional discussion going on in Holyrood. First off with IndyRef, then with Brexit, and then possibly Brexit and IndyRef. We're still trying to work all that bit out. Second reason it's been interesting is because nobody actually knows what happens next. And Chloe will have this, I'm sure, as well. Anytime there's an election, anytime there's a big story, even yesterday when that Labour split happened, people come to me and say, "Oh, what do you think is going to happen?" And I've learned over the last few years just to basically say, "Do you know what? I don't have a clue. Like, this could happen, this could," but actually, we do not know, and you sort of give up predictions. If you told me 5-6 years ago we would have had 2 referendums, 2 general elections, a Scottish election, a council election, so that's 6 elections and 2 referendums in a 5 or 6 year period. We've had where apparently every parliament now is to last 5 years. Prior to bringing that in, it pretty much did, at least for my whole lifetime. Subsequent to bringing that in, we've already had one snaf election, and plenty of people would want to get another. So it's just a really interesting time. I guess that's the starting point to speak about. Is that at the moment we are in this kind of weird, divided, fractured kind of place. There's old Theresa lovingly at Donald. I know Theresa's been mentioned already, and globally, this kind of fracturing of and powers interact with each other in a way that has been unknown, at least for the last sort of 50 or 60 years in the West, and you hear quite a lot about that. And this guy here is certainly a big part of that. It kind of rainbows through all the kind of alliances that the UK has been part of, the US has been part of. Obviously, Brexit, our topic of conversation, we see that in Europe, a kind of fracturing politically. I guess a fracturing that's much closer to home, and I guess what I want to say is start off by saying I think some of these issues we see in Brexit, but they're much bigger than Brexit. And really, it kind of coalesces around this issue of identity that's kind of that fingerprint in the middle, where what we can see, I think, is a fracturing of politics, and you might hear people talk about identity, where politics that's driven by different overlapping layers of who I am as a person and the different identities that I have. And then we see through some of that, and there's been a lot of the movement stuff that has driven Trump, a lot of the movement stuff that has driven Brexit and indeed across Europe has come from different versions of some of the growth of some of this identity. A bad thing in and of itself. It brings some good correctives to how we've done politics for a while. But at its excesses, it becomes quite insular, and at excesses, it means that politics can become about me rather than about we. And then you get all these clashes, because we're in a kind of age of clashing identities. The picture on my left, on the your right, I think, was the kind of Pride March in London last year, where there was a group of feminists got to the front of that march, and there was almost this with a kind of clash of views around the whole sort of gender identity, transgender stuff going on at the moment, and you maybe seen the posters on the other side, the bigots, the sort of hate crime stuff that the Scottish Government is looking at the moment in terms of hate crime laws. Consultation closes next week on that. And again, the kind of the posters that are aiming to tackle hate crime and the campaigns aiming to tackle hate crime and hatred against people because of particular identity characteristics. But we sometimes have these problems when these characteristics come in clash. So we've got a kind of a division at the big level, the big political stuff, a division of identity stuff which goes right really to the core. But then I think we've also seen in Brexit families, a division in workplaces, a division that actually where actually end up on the different sides, actually these fractures, come really close to home. So we are in this really divided place at the moment. And someone from the Evangelical Alliance is going to come and talk about unity, right? That I think we have a call in this. We have a call, division. We see chaos, and I don't mean chaos in a sort of dramatic. I don't mean chaos in a sort of dramatic, the whole world's going to end because of Brexit kind of way. I hope you've already had enough theological input this morning to know that that's not the case. But in a sense, the chaos of a chaotic politics, and we see that in Westminster quite a lot at the moment. We've seen it just yesterday in some of the Labour Party stuff. It's an interesting moment again because none of the political parties are in a particularly great place. Over the last 50 years, often one political party is doing well and the opposition are doing badly, or vice versa. There's usually one party that's in the ascendancy. At the moment in Scotland, it's hard to see any party that's in the ascendancy. Each have got challenges, each have got struggles. There's a kind of slight chaos around how we do that. There's obviously a chaos around business and the whole uncertainty, I suppose. It could be the other word we could do that. Words that mind as I was reflecting ahead of today, of our call as the people of God are to be the people of unity in the middle of this division, the people of hope in the middle of the uncertainty. And I'm this quote from Leslie Newbigin about the congregation being the heretic of the gospel. And that's really where I'm coming at with these two areas of how do we embody unity and how do we embody hope in this particular moment. Another thing that you'll hear me say quite a lot as I travel around Scotland and as a part of my job speaking to politicians is actually, I think this is totally true because there is nothing like the community of God's people to bring transformation into a community. There is nothing, when it works well, now we appreciate the community of God's people doesn't always work well, but when it does, there is nothing like it. There is nothing that can tackle loneliness or family or economic hardship. There is not, because actually the congregation, the hermeneutic, the congregation, the church is the community within the community. And so as we look at these passages that I want to flag up in these two words, I think there's an opportunity there in this Brexit moment to say, okay, well actually as the community of God's people, as we live out unity together, as we live out hope together, then actually we can communicate something of the gospel in this Brexit moment. And so just a couple of passages to reflect on, and I'll read them quickly. And really what I'm trying to do here is just to kind of give some prayer reflection to go away with. So we're not going to loads of depth in each of them. A unity passage on Ephesians 4. They're both well-known passages, but I will read out a few verses briefly from it. As a prisoner of the Lord, for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the peace. There is one all and through all and in all. Prophets, masters and teachers. And become mature, attaining to the whole measure. of teaching. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will in all things grow up into him who is the head, that is Christ. From him the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. And just very briefly, there's three things on the slide there that I think we can communicate as this hermeneutic, communicate as this community. And the first, just to flag up, is that this body that, and it's a plural body, you can't be a body individually, they're united in the qualities of their character. Those first few verses there, you see the fruit of the Spirit, you see how they do life really. Humility, gentleness, patience, bearing with one another in love, keeping the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. It is exhibiting what we would know from Galatians as the fruit of the Spirit. So actually there's a character. We can communicate in this Brexit moment by the character that we have, by how we do our community, by actually how we disagree with each other. A moment where we seem to have forgotten as a country how to disagree with each other. Just talking to Alan earlier about social media. We seem to have forgotten how to debate and respectfully disagree. Well, we can model that in our character. We can model that in the diversity, because there's diversity of gifts, isn't there? We're not all called to be the same, look the same. And actually, whereas, I was talking about identity politics a minute ago, whereas at the worst excesses of politics at the moment becomes reductionist and individualistic, we can actually model something different that's of diversity, and the diversity of gifts that's there. And then thirdly, there's a maturity, and again that maybe is most exhibited in how we debate with each other and how we speak to each other. What happens as we seek to live this out with one another is maturity. And so we can speak with wisdom. We can speak with grace into our community. We can actually see things for how they are. We cannot get tossed around, is the language there. And we cannot get tossed around by the kind of swirls of Brexit and the chaos in Westminster. Because we can have maturity as part of our unity. Secondly then, just briefly, 1 Peter 1, thinking about hope. And I said a minute ago that the political parties at the moment, none of them are in doing amazingly well, none of them are in a great place. And I think what we see probably writ large across this whole Brexit thing is and across our politics at the moment, is a lack of hope. No one is expecting the answer to come easily round the corner. No one is thinking, well, if we just get March out of the way, everything's going to be better after that. Whichever way you would want March to go. Nobody's saying that. Everyone is. There's a grind. There's a stubbornness, I think, about where we are. I don't know if stubbornness is a word, but it's probably the best word. What I hear and see from MSPs of all parties and from people. Some folk just want it to go away. Like, can we just go back to as if this had never happened? Yeah, I mean, and a whole variety. And I think we think of the different groupings within society, different identity stuff, and we see that right across the board. Older people, younger people, people who've moved into this country, people that have lived here their whole lives, right across the board there. But what we have, and I don't have time to read the passage, it's just verses 3 to 7, if you want to go away and reflect on it. But what we have is this beautiful picture of unbelievable hope, and all those words come from those 4 verses that are there. It's a living hope. It's a hope that's based on the resurrection, so it's solid. It looks back to the resurrection, but yet at the same time it looks forward to God's plan, God's secure plan. It's a protected hope. There's a security about it. It's a joyful hope. And my goodness, wouldn't it be great for us to be known as the people of joy within all of this? It's also a refined hope, because the joy, as we know, from true hope doesn't just come from, that feels great. It's not just a high. It's because it's also been refined through struggle and through grief, through suffering, through struggle. but yet it's joyful. And I guess to me, the thing that sums it up, almost it's like a concrete hope. It's like just a really solid, joyful block of concrete. Now, I don't know if we want to look like a block of concrete as the church, but there's a solidity about it, but there's a beauty about it, you know. And what does this mean? Well, actually, whatever happens in March, whatever happens in business, whatever happens in politics, is our hope not a political process. Our hope is a joyful, solid resurrection hope. And actually, and so, just a few thoughts then for prayer and reflection. So how then do we live this out? How can we incarnate this as a body? What does it look like for us to live the gospel in our communities as a body, in the Brexit moment, through the Brexit moment? What does unity and hope look like in our own context? And how can we speak prophetically of that voice of hope into the nation? Because as we communicate this through our words, through our life, through our actions, I think there's a great opportunity for the church to be the voice of hope. You know, we have been around for a lot longer than any political system or political union, and actually we are able and will be ultimately, we are able to communicate from that solid, secure place, to not get caught up in the fighting online and the debating and the slagging each other off and the slagging off our politicians and all of that stuff, but actually to communicate a beautiful prophetic voice of hope. And how then do we call that into existence in our nation? I think that's me.
Thank you, Kieran. Thank you.